Hello. Okay, so this is video 3 of Key Area 5 of Multicellular Organisms National 5 Biology, and this section here is the third video of this section. I think I've already said that, but it's on structure and function of the heart. So far we've covered blood, we've covered blood vessels, and now we're looking at the structure and function of the heart.
Okay, so in this we will be talking, unsurprisingly, about the structure of the heart and its relationship with the lungs and the body. So we're going to look at different blood vessels and how they interact between the heart and the lungs and the rest of the body.
Okay, so there's a crap ton you need to know for this. I'm not even sure if I should use that word, but meh. Okay, there's a lot of stuff to know about this. You need to know the 4 main blood vessels that allow blood into and out of the heart. You have to name the vessel that supplies the heart muscle with blood, name the 4 chambers of the heart, state the function of heart valves, and describe the pathway that oxygenated and deoxygenated blood takes through the heart. Essentially, there's about 12, 13, 14 different things that we're going to cover inside of this, including 8 different names of stuff that you might never have heard before. So quite a lot of content in this one.
Okay, so in terms of the function of the heart, hopefully you should already know the fact that the heart is a muscular pump. It's basically just a big muscle, and its job is obviously to pass blood around the body. It's really got 2 functions we like to say. We like to say it either pumps blood to the lungs, because it goes to the lungs to get oxygenated. Again, next topic's on lungs, so we'll look at that more then. So either pumps blood to the lungs, or it's going to pump it to the rest of the body. Yes, the lungs are part of the body, but we're separating lungs and rest of body.
Okay, if you look at the GIF, the little, is it purple dot? The purple dots that are flowing around on the GIF just now just show the kind of route that blood takes. Is it either coming from the heart to the lungs or from the heart to the rest of the body? Okay, now in the blood vessels, the heart has got 4 blood vessels, 2 of which go into the heart, 2 of which come out of the heart. So the veins that are going, that are attached to the heart, are of course, carrying blood to the heart, because that is the role of veins, as we covered in the last video. Veins carry low pressure blood to the heart. Arteries carry blood away from the heart at high pressure.
Okay, so the first structure that we're going to look at is called the Vena Cava, and the heart, again, very nice. It is very alliterative. So the Vena Cava is a vein. So it is going to be carrying low oxygen blood from the body to the right side of the heart. And what's important to know is when you're talking about the hearts, when you get a diagram like this, is right and left is the opposite way around. You've basically got to think about it like it is your own heart. So as if you were lying down on it and you're actually thinking, well, it's on my own heart. Well, this is my right and this is my left. So it's basically the exact opposite of what you are looking at. And it's really important to remember that, or else you're going to be screwed for this, because every diagram expects you to do it that way around. So if you start doing it the opposite way around and just do it the way you're looking at it, it is useless. So you've got to get the hang of it. I would encourage you, above the Vena Cava, to write that that is the right hand side, and above the other side, which we'll touch on the structure in a minute, write that that's the left hand side. Really important that you get the right sides of the heart the right way around.
It really is. Okay, the pulmonary artery is an artery. It's in its name. Now, a good thing to do is have a knowledge of what the word pulmonary means. The word pulmonary is a posh science word for lungs. Okay, so the word pulmonary artery is telling me 2 things. It's telling me, number 1, it's an artery, so it's going away from the heart. Number 2, that word pulmonary says it's linked to the lungs, so I can understand there from knowledge that it's coming from the heart to the lungs. Now again, what my knowledge of stuff tells me is if things are going to the lungs, that means they're probably going to pick up oxygen, because it's not like you go to the lungs if you already have loads of oxygen. Okay, so what we've got here is the pulmonary artery carries low oxygen, which is sometimes referred to as deoxygenated blood, from the right side of the heart to the lungs. So essentially, all of that information is contained inside that name and inside a little bit of just problem solving and working out from you there. Okay, so you need a pulmonary artery from the heart to the lungs to pick up oxygen.
The next structure, so now we're on to the left-hand side of the heart, which is the right-hand side as we look at it, but we're calling it the left-hand side. And the first structure we come to is the pulmonary vein. So again, pulmonary still means it's to do with the lungs. It is a vein, so remember, arteries are going away from the heart, so veins are doing the opposite. They are coming towards the heart. So it's pulmonary, so it's coming from the lungs towards the heart is what we can get from this. And unsurprisingly, it's a vein, because it literally says in its name, it's a vein. Now what this does is it carries the now newly oxygenated, so blood that is high in oxygen, from the lungs back into the left-hand side of the heart, so as it can then be pumped to the rest of the body.
Okay, and that's exactly what the aorta is going to do. When the heart squeezes that high oxygen blood up through this tube, it is called the aorta. That's the artery that is there. Okay, and again, you can think aorta, that kind of almost looks like somebody has spelt artery really badly there. Okay, and it carries the oxygenated blood from the left side of the heart to the rest of the body so that it can use that oxygen for aerobic respiration. Okay, so that is the job of the aorta. Very, very high pressure blood, high oxygen content to the rest of the body.
Okay, so here's just a wee table to summarise your heart blood vessels. This is a really good table just to practice writing down, filling in the blanks and getting the hang of where things are going. So first of all, in terms of the vessels, we've got the vena cava, which carries deoxygenated blood, and it carries it from the body to the right-hand side of the heart.
Okay, the pulmonary artery is also carrying deoxygenated blood from the right side of the heart to the lungs.
The pulmonary vein is now carrying oxygenated blood, and it is coming from the lungs to the left side of the heart.
And the aorta is carrying oxygenated blood from the left side of the heart to the body. So the relationship there we've got is deoxygenated blood arrives at the heart, gets sent to the lungs, it comes back from the lungs when it's now oxygenated, and then gets sent to the rest of the body. That's the kind of relationship we're looking at there. So next, let's look at the heart.
Okay, so the heart, as we've already said, is split into two sides. It's got the left and the right, which are the opposite that you think. So in this GIF here, the blue side is the right side, the red side is the left side. Remember that, it's important. So the right-hand side of the heart carries deoxygenated blood, because remember, it is coming in, having come from the body, it's coming in through the vena cava, and then it's going to go out through the pulmonary artery. So it's going to go to the lungs. So if it's going to the lungs, it's not got oxygen. So the right-hand side is deoxygenated, whereas the left-hand side, it's just come in through the pulmonary vein, so it's just been at the lung, so it is oxygenated. So right-hand side, deoxygenated, left-hand side carries oxygenated blood. And quite often this is actually coloured in a diagram as blue and red, blue being deoxygenated, red being oxygenated. That's not the case in your body though.
No, you don't have any blue blood in your body. I know, like when you look at veins in your wrist, they look blue. Your blood is always red, okay? It's never not red. Okay, so the right side of the heart, and again, remembering our opposites of right and left rules for this, the right side of the heart is divided into two chambers, the right atrium and the right ventricle. I remember ventricles because they are kind of V-shaped at the bottom, okay? So it makes it slightly easier to remember which is which, okay? Blood enters the right atrium, and in this case from the vena cava, is squeezed from the right atrium at the top into the right ventricle before then being squeezed again up and out of the pulmonary artery.
In terms of valves in the heart, now valves, we've talked about veins having valves. The heart also has valves, and it's for the exact same purpose. It is to prevent the backflow of blood. So once you have blood come out of your right atrium into your right ventricle, you don't want it going back the way. If it goes back the way, it is bad, and there's a lot of health issues that come with this. So this is bad. So in between your chambers, so in between your atrium and your ventricles, there are valves, and they are important. They stop blood flowing back into a previous chamber.
Okay, so those are the valve locations there. Your teacher might have told you the names of these valves. At National 5 level, you don't need to know. You just need to know that is a valve, it stops backflow of blood. So if you have been taught the terms atrioventricular or semilunar, don't worry, that's just extra. You're in a good position for higher next year. But all you need to know is that is a valve, it stops backflow of blood. Okay, the left side of the heart is divided into two chambers as well. We've got the left atrium and the left ventricle. And again, we can remember that the ventricle, it looks kind of V-shaped, okay? So you should be getting the hang of this, having seen the right atrium and right ventricle. So what happens here is blood enters the left atrium up at the top from the pulmonary vein, gets squeezed from the atrium into the ventricle, and then the ventricle will squeeze blood up out of the aorta at high pressure.
So again, there are valves on this side as well. Exactly the same. It's in between the atrium and the ventricle, and then between the ventricle and leaving through the aorta. Exact same purpose, prevent backflow of blood. So basically the right and the left are pretty similar. The only difference is the vessels that the blood comes into and out of, and the fact it's on the left or on the right. One other thing that you do need to know is that the left ventricle has a much thicker wall than the right ventricle, and the reason being, once blood goes out of the left ventricle, it has got to go the whole way around your body. It's got to go to the tips of your fingers and tips of your toes. So it needs to be pumped all the way around your body. Whereas leaving the right ventricle, it's only got to go to the lungs. It's right beside it. So it doesn't need that much energy to pump it through. So left ventricle, much, much bigger.
Okay, and there are your valve locations again. And again, you don't need to know the names of the valves. You don't need to know that's a valve and that's a valve. They stop backflow of blood. Okay, so to summarise the heart structure, there we've got the right atrium, which carries deoxygenated blood from the vena cava to the right ventricle.
Got the right ventricle, which carries deoxygenated blood from the right atrium to the pulmonary artery.
Then we've got the left atrium, which will squeeze oxygenated blood from the pulmonary vein, to the left ventricle.
And the left ventricle, which will carry oxygenated blood from the left atrium to the aorta.
Okay, so essentially that's the whole of the pathway through the heart. The previous table just looks at passing from blood vessel to blood vessel, whereas this one's actually looking at what happens inside the actual heart for the blood vessels and how they work.
It's worth practicing writing this as kind of a continuous thing, as if you were doing a 3 or 4 mark question of the pathway of blood, and actually naming, is it oxygenated, deoxygenated, what chamber is it in, where's it going from, where's it going to, and getting used to writing that.
Now, last thing to cover is about coronary arteries. Now, this is a question that the SQA love to throw in because everybody spends so much time revising aorta, pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, and they forget about these little things. The heart is a muscle, okay? So it needs to be able to do lots and lots of aerobic respiration to make ATP for all the muscle contractions that it has to do. And that means it needs a constant supply of oxygen and nutrients. It doesn't get these from inside the chambers. Inside the chambers, there's no absorbing surfaces for oxygen and that sort of thing. So it needs its own separate arteries on the outside of the heart, and these are called coronary arteries. Now, these are the ones that if you get a heart attack, these are the ones that get blocked. Not if you get heart. Basically, if they get blocked, you have a heart attack. Okay, so say you've got a really high fat diet or something like that, and you get a coronary artery that's clogged, that can cause a heart attack because essentially your heart muscle doesn't get the oxygen and nutrients it needs for aerobic respiration, and so your heart stops contracting properly to shove blood around your body.
And just final thing that we're going to point out here is these are diagrams from SQA past papers. They are all of the heart. They look really, really different. Like on the left, that doesn't look like a body, but it's supposed to represent a body because you've got your lungs, your body, you've got your heart in the middle, and it shows the pathways. It does not actually look like this in your body. You then obviously got the second diagram, which is kind of a 2D. It looks a bit like what we've shown, but it's a wee bit different. And then you've got that kind of 3D,
which is more realistic. Like the one we covered, yeah.
So you need to know all of these. The one on the left is actually really, really common, where it's got actually the pathway to the lungs and the body as well. So being comfortable with different diagrams, being comfortable with what they show, and actually being just happy that these are all the same thing is really important.
Can I highlight as well that that picture on the left-hand side, the one that's showing P, Q, and R? There's an exam question that crops up that says, it's a past paper question, and it said, give a difference between the oxygen concentration between P and Q. A load of people wrote P is deoxygenated, Q is oxygenated. They all got that wrong, and the reason for it is oxygen concentration isn't oxygenated and deoxygenated. Oxygen concentration can be high and low, but the term oxygenated and deoxygenated should only be used for what term can we use to describe the oxygen blood or the blood oxygen. Okay, so for the exam question that's got that picture, for those of you who are doing it, make sure you're saying that the concentration of oxygen is higher at Q than at P. You've got to have a higher lower comparison there. But that's just something to be aware of, just a little bit of extra. Now, there's a lot in this. You need to try a lot of exam paper questions, and flashcards are actually fantastic. So 4 flashcards for each blood vessel would be a really good idea for practicing what it is and where it carries blood from and to.
Yeah, and if you're planning on doing higher human, you need to know this, and you need to know this well because it just gets more at higher human.
It does.
But it's very interesting.
The last key area is absorption of materials, which looks at lungs and digestive system. It's really nice and short. There's not a huge amount of detail in it. In fact, the lungs and digestive system, the stuff that's in it, it overlaps immensely. And that'll be the final key area of multicellular organisms, and then we'll be looking to move on to Unit 3. Which has been a lot so far. So we'll see you in the next key area, the final key area for multicellular organisms. Bye.